Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Hey there, thinkers. It's me, your girl, your host, Elena Grace, and I am here to bring you a brand new, absolutely incredible episode of I've Been Thinking. So thank you so much for being here. I really genuinely appreciate you. I can't say it enough. I don't know if I say it nearly enough, but you're the reason. So thank you for being here. Now, if this is your first episode, this is a hell of a first episode. I can't recommend this one enough to start with. I invited my friend Afsheen on, and he and I, we really get into it. This is an amazing episode. And if this is a return episode for you, then welcome back. Thank you for coming back. I so appreciate it. And, you know, this is the kind of episode that I think you come back for. Now, to give you a little bit of insight into what this episode is going to be about. Now, I'm not going to give anything away because you really have to listen to it, okay? But my friend Afsheen Misaghi, I invited him on today to talk to us about the SAG-AFTRA strikes. Afsheen is an actor and media professional. He does modeling, voice acting, all kinds of stuff. He's been in shows that you've seen. And we're not going to talk about specifics because ultimately that is kind of promoting. And right now we're not doing that because of the strikes. We're not crossing that line. But he's incredible, and I would love for you guys to go look him up, to go find him on social media, and to look into him and what he's done and follow along with him, because he's going to be a good one. He's going to be a big one. He is a good one. He's going to be a big one, and I can't wait to see where he goes with his journey. Now, on this episode, we really get into talking about SAG-AFTRA, why actors and writers are striking. We go on a little thing about AI, which was really super interesting and really perspective shifting in some ways for me, and you'll see why. We talk about why you should care, why the average person should care about big time celebrities, right, going on strike, because it makes so much more sense than you think it does. So, all that being said, I'm so excited for you to be here. Thank you for coming back. I'm so excited for you to be here. I'm so excited for this episode because I think it's really important and really meaningful. But real quick, before we get into the episode, I want to remind you guys, if you're new here, if you don't follow us, first of all, like, subscribe, follow wherever you're listening to the pod. That way you don't miss anything. You don't miss new episodes. Reminder, right now, every other Friday we come out with a brand new episode, but I don't want you to miss anything. So on Spotify, give us a subscribe, follow us on Apple Pods, whatever it is. Make sure that you're getting those notifications, because you never know. We might throw some extra in there and you'll miss it. You'll miss it because it's not on schedule. So Follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. While you're at it, give us a like, a 5 stars, a review, whatever it is where you're listening. Those reviews help so much. That pushes us out to more people. I can't tell you how important those are. It's honestly ridiculous how important those are, but it's so helpful. So if you want an easy, free way to support I've Been Thinking, to support myself and Tyler and help us on this journey, give us 5 stars, give us a review. And hell, we'll take bad reviews. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us what you'd like to hear more of. Tell us what you think we can do better, because we want to know that too. Now, follow on Instagram at I've Been Thinking Pod. Follow us on Facebook, I've Been Thinking with Elena Grace. Check out the website, I'veBeenThinkingPod.com. There's resources, there's show notes, there's all kinds of stuff going back to 3 years to the beginning of the pod. So give that a check out. And finally, if you want to support us monetarily, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/I've Been Thinking Pod. That's where you get extra content. There's going to be Tyler specific content, like Tyler centric content on there. Producer Tyler is going to be writing and creating his own episodes for Patreon, as well as more Elena stuff. There's all kinds of bonus episodes and video content on there. So just all kinds of stuff on Patreon right now. And it's pretty inexpensive for a monthly membership, and you would be helping us so much. I really can't tell you how much. Finally, send us to a friend. Send I've Been Thinking to somebody that you think would enjoy it, because that is how we're going to grow. That is how you can help us with minimal effort to grow into the next big thing. And that is how we're going to get even more incredible content rolling, even more incredible guests coming on. Just consistent, absolute bangers are going to be coming out if you share us with all your friends. Put us on social media, tag us in it, we'll share you back. Tell everybody you know to listen to I've Been Thinking. So all of that being said, all of that self-promotion being done, thank you guys for being here, and you're gonna love this. Here's Afsheen.
Hey everybody, my name is Afsheen Misaghi. I am a actor and producer living in Brooklyn, New York. That's where I am right now, and I'm really excited to be here talking with Elena Grace. And I'm currently on strike as far as all my acting goes. That's on the screen. But differently, I am also a theater actor, so I'm involved with doing some theater shows currently, but right now I'm on strike because I'm part of the SAG-AFTRA union, and both the Writers Guild and the SAG-AFTRA union are on strike, so that means I cannot audition or work for productions and TV shows and movies that you all may love and watch on every kind of streaming service or TV show that is on basic cable as well. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm happy to also be a proud West Virginian and Appalachian too.
So I'm thrilled to have you back, Afsheen. You were a featured guest way back in 2020 or 2021. I can't remember.
It was the winter of 2021. I think it was February 2021.
I love it. Your memory is incredible. And you talked about some things that you were working on that we can't specifically talk about right now, but I highly recommend that any of the listeners, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, go back and find it. I'll link it in the show notes too, because we had the most incredible conversation about intersectionality, about Appalachian identity, about some projects you were doing. Like, it was such a beautiful episode. It actually genuinely one of my favorites I've done. And I have gotten incredible feedback on that one too, where people were like, Elena, this is it. This is the good stuff. So go check that one out, because Afsheen has the most incredible things to say. And you've grown so much since then. Like, back then I think you were still in West Virginia when we did that episode. And now here you are in Brooklyn, and you're working even more, and you're doing all these amazing things.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I remember we recorded that episode probably and like the first week of January maybe, or the second week of January, and by the third week of January I moved to New York in 2021. And yeah, it's been a really crazy ride. I mean, the last 2 years, I was just thinking, like, exactly 2 years ago yesterday, I auditioned for this Broadway show, and I ran into my friend at this audition. I have this video that like came up, like Apple Photos. They'll be like, "Here's your memory," and it'll be like the worst memory ever. But this was actually a very pleasant memory. I mean, although neither of us got the role, but I sent it to him, and I was like, "Can you believe this was 2 years ago?" It feels like a lifetime ago, but it also feels like yesterday. And at that point, I had just been in New York for maybe 6 months, if that. So yeah, it's been such a crazy thing, and time has really flown by. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has. And then you and I were reminiscing a little bit before we started recording about how the pod has grown. And I think you know this, but I moved to Florida since then.
I did know that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just been crazy. And now I'm an artist instead of like doing the things I went to school for. I'm chasing that dream too, and like showing my artwork in galleries and stuff. And it's crazy, and I'm so proud of us.
Yeah, I am too. That's so exciting. Wait, I guess I didn't know this at one point, but where in Florida?
The Panhandle, so like the Destin area.
Yeah, I went to the University of Florida for graduate school.
I did know that. Yeah, so I'm over in the Destin area, kind of in like a suburb of Destin, if you will. And I love it.
I'm jealous. I love a good October through April Florida living.
Yeah, right now, the past like 3 months, honestly, have been, it's been absolutely miserable. And we have been under a heat advisory for literally a month.
Yeah,
like,
that makes unfortunately sense.
Yeah, it's been absolutely awful. Yesterday I did like an artist vendors market thing, and it was like 119 degrees with the humidity and everything, and absolutely killed me. I also didn't make any sales, like no significant sales. It was like not a good. It wasn't worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sure. It was awful. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. Well, anyway, so all that to say that we're both doing our thing, but your thing has kind of been put on hold for a little bit with the SAG-AFTRA strike. And that's what I asked you to come here to talk about today, because I think, of course, it's so important. I want to know how to support other artists like yourself whose art has been undervalued and is on hold right now. And I want people to understand why it's important that we support our entertainers in this.
Absolutely, yeah.
And writers as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a few things that when I talk to people, they're like a little confused about, or they don't understand fully. But one of the the biggest thing when it comes to or the biggest fight, I would say, between the SAG-AFTRA union and the AMPTP, which is a organization made up of many, many different producing entities, including your favorite streaming services like Netflix, Apple, Amazon, and all your, favorite like shows that you'd watch on TV, like, shows that you like on CBS or ABC or NBC or anything like that, Nickelodeon. That's where the disagreement comes, and the biggest disagreement, as I was saying, is about wages and residuals. So, and I think that's where a little bit of like, people may not understand exactly what that is or what that means, but essentially, before Netflix was a thing, before streaming services was a thing, you would watch TV on basic or paid cable, and advertisements would pay to be on the air, to be a part of their a channel's commercial, rather, I should say, or companies would pay for advertisements. And so every time that the show was aired, the network was making money. So back in I believe it was in the 80s, the union proctored a deal to basically say every time there's an episode of a TV show is shown, actors will get a portion of that residual payment that's coming from the advertisements. Because as you can imagine, and as you know, if you hop on like TBS or CBS, you may be able to you might watch a show that comes out for the first time, let's say premieres on Friday at 8 p.m. But there's always constantly reruns, and people can buy them on DVD back in the day, or buy them now on digital. So basically the saying is like, we got to share the profits, we got to share the portions. And that's for writers and actors too. What's also a big lucrative part for these big production companies and entertainment companies is to sell TV shows and movies internationally. So let's say like if you are in Portugal, you may be able, like a channel there might have bought like Law and Order SVU season 14 to show on that network over there. So that is also another way that actors and writers can make payments. And the truth is that those payments can be quite large. They can pay for people's, depending on the size of their involvement in the show, they can pay for people's, whether full or partially help with their rent, their, grocery bill, their children's tuitions, whatever it might be. Those could be quite good. And so many actors and writers, they were able to sustain themselves by stringing along a few days of work a year, or hopefully more, and live off both the payments that they were making for their work and also off of residual payments. However, with the advent of Netflix and streaming, now there's not much commercials anymore because people are paying up front, but B, there's those companies are hiding their data. When it comes to cable and basic cable, there's third-party entities like Nielsen that count how many people are watching each TV show, and based on that, you're able to sell a certain amount of dollar ads to companies because they're like, oh, I want my commercial to be on this channel during this time because this million eyeballs will be watching it. With Netflix and Hulu and all those streaming services, they don't share that data with anybody. They have it internally. So now, actors and writers are getting paid flat fees with basically no residuals and not even knowing who's watching their things and how much. So that's one of the biggest fights that the actors and the writers have in common, and it's this fight for residual payments.
How interesting. That is so, first of all, I find it personally really, really interesting that these streaming services keep their insights internal and they don't share any of that.
Yeah, it wasn't just up until a few years ago. I don't know if you remember, but even Netflix never put like a top 10 things watching in the U.S. That's like a new thing that Netflix kept because their data is so secretive.
How interesting.
Yeah, it's
also, sorry, I was just going to say, I've seen a lot of people who think that is totally fake too, that it's like Netflix's way of saying, oh, this show is not performing as well as we want it to. Let's put it in the top 10 and trick people into thinking that it's awesome or whatever.
I mean, I've personally never heard of it, but the truth is that they're in control. You know, that's their
Right.
website. When we sign the user agreement, they kind of can do whatever they want with our data, with their data, and how they collect and diffuse it. But it is very rare that any of these streaming services will ever have a release of how many millions of households or Netflix accounts or accounts, if it's another streaming service, watch that specific show. So for shows, especially on HBO or let's say Showtime or Stars, they very rarely, if ever, release any kind of data. So it's really for them to do whatever they please with it.
That is really interesting. I mean, I get it, I guess, from their perspective that they want to keep it as, their own information that they do with as they please. But I am just of the mindset personally that it is so much more helpful to share information.
Well, everybody wins. Well, maybe
Right.
not everybody wins, but I think democracy and a lot of things can happen with facts and data, right? So the truth is that they are holding on to that because of that reason, that a lot of things can change with data and the facts.
Right.
So they are potentially, I can't speak for everybody, and also I have to preface this by saying what I just did was a very layman's explanation of what's going on. And I was just really talking about the similarities. There was a few more similarities between what the writers and the actors are on strike for. But, these companies, which are essentially tech companies, they know the power of data.
Yes.
And they know that whoever controls the data and whoever can, knows the data can make the decisions and can make demands and make things of that nature. So that's the big issue. There is an article that came out, and it was a big leak from Netflix. They did not want this to happen, but with their a Netflix leak happened that they said that Squid Games, the show on Netflix that came out, I believe, 2 years ago, that brought $900 million to Netflix.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in profit.
Right.
Or it brought $900 million in business, and the creators of that show never even saw any kind of residual outside of a very, very maybe small package.
I think I did hear about that.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Interesting. It's also incredibly sad in my opinion, but it's also really interesting, kind of like a case study of the importance of data. Because the truth is, if these companies didn't think it was that important, I'm sure that they would be much more open to be transparent. But one of the demands from both the writers' unions and the Actors Guild is to be more transparent with the data.
Absolutely. Yeah, and as just from my position as a podcast host, right? I know how important data is. I know how important those insights are, how that can affect ads and how that can affect people, how people view the show from a managerial point. All of those things are very, very important. So I totally understand those streaming services wanting to withhold that because they know how much power it gives them. I'm not saying it's right. I understand how much power it gives them.
Yeah.
And I absolutely understand why actors and writers should have access to that information, because that's how they know what they're doing is doing well.
Yeah, exactly. And for a lot of the creators of the shows, they're not really privy to the data either. And
Wild.
So it's across the board a really, really helpful thing.
Yeah.
Now, somewheres that the writers and the actors guilds our demands and questions. Other places, or rather, where things are different, is it's just simply different things. A lot of writers are fighting for the conditions in writers' rooms, and actors. A lot of the actors' fights are for auditioning and those, like, the areas around that. But another area that both writers and actors are concerned about is AI and artificial intelligence, which is and kind of a different one of the other big things that have been talked about in the news and the media between these two strikes.
Right, and I was actually just about to bring that up because, of course, writers are concerned that AI is going to be used to replace them, essentially, to write content. And actors are concerned about the use of AI using their likeness without compensation. Just like, to very, very boil it down to the two hot topics on that I know of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can for the actors, one thing that was talked about right when the strike was happening was the and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically the one of the negotiating parts was when it comes to background actors. Now, background actors are known as extras, and that's very difficult work for an actor. You know, it should be treated with dignity too. You know, they're on sets for very long hours, very professional. They have to do very complicated things in the background, as far as like acting, hitting their mark, etc. And they're paid. They're paid for that work. But one thing that was mentioned was that studios want to digitally scan their bodies and their faces and use them into perpetuity. So essentially, as long as they would like to, and pay them only for a half a day or day's work.
Absolutely not.
Which is absolutely, insane, thinking that a lot of these background actors and extras, I know many people that's how they pay their bills.
Right.
That's how they pay their rent, is simply by doing X amount of days of background or extra work a month. So to have your body scanned and then used however they would like to is also, a point of concern for a lot of performers, because even in a world where, let's say, they were okay, you know what, I'm okay with being my likeness scanned, which I'm sure a lot are not, but then the studio gets control of how they use it, what projects they use it in. So, one day you could be in the background of a TV show on, NBC, but then the next week you could be in like a Hollywood, like a Marvel movie.
Right.
And then the next week you could be in something else. So, and maybe you're not in ways that, maybe you're being portrayed in ways that you wouldn't be comfortable being portrayed, or wouldn't be expected to be portrayed, or you would never have signed up to do that if, you knew your likeness was going to be used this way. So it's a really, it's a really complicated thing. Now, the truth is that a lot of those AI is now becoming more and more part of our lives, but still we're like just now everybody's getting to like realizing what it is. So a lot of the arguments that the actors and writers have in place is okay, we're seeing what potentially could happen. Now let's put some fail safes in place so that these AI and machine learning don't take over certain aspects. So maybe we can't imagine what's going to be like going on in the AI space 6 months from now or a year from now. But let's make sure we protect ourselves from potentially whatever's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the negotiation, or the part of the agreements that are trying to be made, is protections on what could happen 1 year or 2 years from now. Not necessarily even what's happening today, including what's happening today.
I think that's absolutely an important and necessary, and one of the smartest things that they can do with the growth of AI as we're seeing it now. As a visual artist, I really am not a fan of AI because people use it all the time to do things that they should truly be paying an artist to do, right? For example, and they are using AI because it's free and blah, 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 and it's easy and it's fun and all that good stuff. And like, yeah, but AI takes from actual artist's work or from actual writer's work, and it learns from it, and then it reproduces something. And so it's taking away opportunities from writers, from artists, from actors. And one of my favorite things, though, I have to say, is that AI can't do hands. I think that is the funniest thing in the whole entire world, because I know how difficult hands are to draw, to paint, to like whatever. I think it's so funny that a computer robot brain thing can't do hands either.
That is hilarious. Yeah,
Right.
I know that hands are the hardest part for drawing and
Yeah.
visual arts. That's so funny that even now, like the thing that should be able to do it like beautifully or perfectly, rather, I should say, like in a very computer like
Yeah.
laser cut like kind of way, it can't even do that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it can't do it. Like, if you see a weird image and you're like, is this AI? Look at the hands, and 9 out of 10 times, the hands will have like 9 fingers each, or they'll be like super wonky, like looks like an alien hand or something. It's, yeah, look for that next time you see something that you're like, is this AI? And if it is, if the hands are in it, they're not right.
Yeah, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
good to know.
It-
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's
Well,
how
the-
you know.
Well, a few people are also already saying that, like, or I'd rather say, like, a few ideas for. There's like this idea of like how to authenticate things that now we see online or on internet. Basically, some people are saying, okay, well, like before you see an image or before you see a TV show, there should be a stamp or some kind of symbol that says no artificial intelligence was made. This is 100% artificial intelligence free, which I thought was very interesting because
Yeah.
like there very potentially is a world pretty soon where we'll be watching things on our phones or on TikTok even or on our Netflix or whatever, and it could be either partially or fully made by artificial intelligence, and we could be deceived into thinking that. Already, I mean, it's pretty strong. I mean, already there's a lot of like deep fakes. There's a lot of like music out there that one would think that it's made by a certain artist or person or entity, but in reality, it's all artificial intelligence.
Right.
So it's kind of like a dystopian to think that now we're gonna have to have like a universally accepted, kind of stamp of approval that humans made this, nobody else.
Yeah, that is really dystopian, honestly. But I don't know what better way to guarantee that something you're watching isn't AI created or whatever. And for me personally, as somebody who like dabbles in writing some too, I write for some of the other podcasts on Stoveleg, for example. I ethically cannot fathom handing somebody an AI created script and saying it's my work, or saying like, here's this, use it. That just doesn't work for me. But I know that my morals are not the same as other people's morals, and that's a whole different episode. But I can't imagine trying to, that it feels like plagiarism to me, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a big issue right now. I know in college campuses that a lot of people are using ChatGPT and other artificial intelligences to create their work and such. And I mean, I think that also there's and I think a lot of artists would agree too, on the flip side, that when used well, artificial intelligence can be such a great tool.
Totally.
And can really help with the bogged down like day-to-day tasks. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've used ChatGPT to help me write an email or or two, but it's kind of like, how can you use those things as tools rather than replacement?
Yes,
But
exactly.
the truth is that a lot of businesses, basically every business, is more worried about their bottom line and how much profits they're making than about keeping jobs. Unfortunately, that's just business, right? So part of the Screen Actors Guild is to make sure that they protect the workers. So there's kind of like this big fight between, okay, if companies are concerned about money and the bottom line, and the union is more worried about the worker, how can they negotiate to find a common ground? And that's kind of why we're on strike right now, because they just couldn't find that common ground.
Yeah, for sure. I'm thankful that you circled it back, because we were going off on an AI tangent, and I was like fully on board with it. But yeah, you're exactly right, and that is, of course, as always, the point of a strike. Where's the common ground? How can we both benefit from this? And not to get off on another tangent, but essentially throwing your workers under the bus, like, that's unfettered capitalism, and it never works out in the long run, because it always ends up in an eventual collapse. And and as Appalachians, we know all about that.
Yeah. I think it's just, it's also like an idea of like where the power lies,
Right.
And the truth is that when there is like a power imbalance, things hopefully tend to balance out. And right now, some people that have a little bit maybe too much power are not willing to, or power is one thing, money is one thing, agency is one thing, and we're trying to balance it out just a bit. And I also think like what it's saying is that like times are tough, as far as like quote unquote the stock market goes. So for a lot of these companies, they're concerned about their bottom line and their money and their stockholders, but the demands of the unions are just small portions of their yearly revenues. So
Right.
when you look at those like numbers, they're in the like single digit percentages of how much the unions are asking to negotiate of these big companies, multi-billion dollar companies. Actors and unions are asking just for the smallest portion of that. So it's wild. It's also wild to think that with inflation, a dollar today is very different than a dollar 20 years ago. But if you adjust for inflation, writers and actors are getting paid less than they ever have.
Yeah.
And with less work opportunity or rather I should say there's more work opportunity because of the advent of television and streaming, but less consistent work opportunity because back in the day, you could be on a TV show that would run for, hopefully a few seasons, but, a lot of those TV shows would run for many, many seasons. But now, and many, many episodes per season, one episode of like a show that came out in the 90s maybe had like 22 episodes per season. But now, any show that you watch on Netflix, really the most they'll have is 10 episodes. So it's a lot more bouncing around, especially for writers. And that's part of their fight too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed there's a lot more limited series and that kind of thing going on now too, which would definitely hinder both an actor and a writer, I would imagine, in saying, I'll sign on for this series and then it becoming a limited series or something like that eventually. Yeah. And you're like, I could have done some other work that would sustain me for a longer period of time or whatever.
And that's why another reason why these residuals are so important is because now, especially with less consistent work, many writers are writing, on shows that are vastly successful, that are bringing these tech companies or these streaming companies millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they're only getting paid once with basically no or very little residuals. And then they're struggling to go find the next job, while this thing that they created out of their own brains and their own creativity and their own work and their own sweat is making so much money. So that's the really fight. It's just fair wages and fair profit sharing.
Yeah, fair compensation for your work. That's really it. And that's what a majority of union strikes come down to, honestly.
And I think that another thing to be said is most actors. There's 160,000 people in the SAG-AFTRA. Now, SAG-AFTRA represents a lot of different types of people. Actors, for sure, but then a lot of people that are part of SAG are radio hosts, are voiceover actors, are people that do motion capture for video games, are influencers even. So a lot of different people are part of SAG-AFTRA. But very, very few make a living by their work that is covered by SAG-AFTRA. 86 or 87% of members of SAG-AFTRA do not qualify for the health insurance as provided by the union. Now, that threshold to reach the health insurance is $26,000 annually. So that means that only 13%, or roughly about, are making $26,000 or more a year acting. So just from that, and even of that, only the smallest portion is the people that you see in, advertisements, or your favorite celebrities like, Kevin Hart or, Brad Pitt. Many, many, many of them are just actors and creatives and artists trying to get by, trying to pay their rent, trying to put food on the table, try to pay their mortgage, whatever it might be. So although it's Hollywood and the entertainment industry is oftentimes like, oh, there's so many fancy people, or oh, everybody's famous, or oh, there's so much money going around. The truth is, like most industries, the money is unevenly distributed, even within the workers, but it's definitely very vastly distributed unevenly between the companies and the workers. So yeah, it's a very simple, it should be a very simple thing that unfortunately has caused a double strike within a single industry.
Right. And that was actually, a question I was going to ask you is basically, why should we care? Why should that average person care? Right. And because I know that is something that I've seen floating around the internet. Well, why do I care what these actors want, that they're not getting paid enough? Like, please, they're making so much money. But in reality, obviously, as we know, they're not. Like, it's a very small percentage of people who are making these hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. And even within that, like the big names or the big the like main characters in series and movies aren't even truly making a sizable portion of what they've produced, or what they produced as an actor, like what has come out of their creativity, their hard work. Like, they're not making what that work was worth.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely they're not. But the question of like, yeah, wait, go ahead, sorry.
No, you go. You're going to say something.
No, I was just going to say the question of like why people should worry. I think there's like many, many reasons. One, we can talk about like a very like obvious reason. And the simple fact is, very sooner than later, your favorite TV shows and movies that you are excited to go see in a movie theater, or excited to like watch, the second or third season of your favorite show, or maybe an upcoming show, they're not going to be coming out. With basically all the things that you watch on Netflix or Hulu or TV, anything basically, even some things that you see on YouTube or TikTok, but most part those are not. But like anything else you watch, those are made by writers that are part of the WGA, and they're definitely made out of actors made out of that come from the SAG-AFTRA union. So very short time, movies that and TV shows that you were really anticipating, they're not going to be coming out. But even in a more real way, I think that there's something to be said about the idea that if it's happening to very, very visible people. Actors for the most part are very visible people. They're constantly movies and TV shows. If being treated unfairly and being paid unlivable wages is happening to people that literally are on the forefront of like magazines and TV shows and movies, then it's definitely going to happen to people that are not so visible. So, in a very real way, if I'm not saying that like you should be. I definitely don't want to put fear in anybody. Like, oh, you should worry about being exploited or any of those things. But if people are being exploited that are like literally like talk, on your screens, then I don't think that companies have any issues exploiting workers who are not so visible.
That's an awesome point too.
The other also thing is when it comes to artificial intelligence, there's currently like some like artificial intelligence are like writing scripts and kind of like doing visual things, and although they're like kind of scary because we're like, oh no, these could get really good, right now they're still pretty bad. However, artificial intelligence could very well take over many other aspects of many different industries. So, as mentioned, actors and writers are trying to put protections in place so that as artificial intelligence gets better and better and better, we don't we have protections in place. And I think a lot of industries, again, there's a chance that, they don't really take over many industries, or your industry might be safe, but artificial intelligence and machine learning could take over many aspects of many other industries. Just thinking about entertainment, the truth is that actors and writers, they do a lot of very creative work, which is artificial intelligence is not necessarily great at so far, but a lot of other aspects of the entertainment industry, like casting, directing, publicists, producing, those are work that a good portion of it, if not all of it, could be done by an artificial intelligence, a robot essentially. So I think when actors and writers are striking and demanding these things, I think they're demanding it also for other parts of the entertainment industry as well, and in other industries as well. So I think that even if you're not an actor, you don't know an actor, if you like watching TV, if you like watching movies, if you like, even watching funny ads on YouTube, all the things that you can imagine, those are made by writers and actors. So you'll run out of those, and you should worry about just the plight of working people.
Yeah, absolutely. Because ultimately it comes down to the fact that, like we've said, the majority of these actors and writers, they're just regular working people like you, like me, like Adam, like Tyler, like our parents, like whatever. They're just regular people who happen to work in the entertainment industry. And most of them, like, we might be watching them on TV, but a lot of them aren't necessarily making more than us.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And yeah. I think that is definitely a huge, huge misunderstanding, that people think you're seeing somebody on the screen, they must be making a ton of money. Like, they're famous, they're rich. But that's absolutely not the case. And again, they're just a working class person like anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And nowadays, with there being so much media, whether it be, there's so many more TV shows than there ever was, there's so many more movies than there ever was, there's so many more influencers than there ever was. I think there's a conflation between being visible and making money. And there's this idea that, like, I've been very lucky. I've been on had very, what they call co-star roles on a few popular TV shows, but somebody who maybe be visible on TV shows and on movies, they are still struggling to make ends meet.
Absolutely. Yeah, and ultimately, I think that's what it comes down to, why we should care. And I think that's another reason why I have been really impressed personally by a lot of the actors that I've seen who are those big names, who do make tons and tons and tons of money, who have been standing in solidarity, because they're not just doing it for themselves, they're doing it for actors and writers in the industry as a whole, because they understand the importance.
Yeah,
because they've been there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and personally, to kind of bring it all back together, I think that this strike, this is my personal thought, that this strike is really potentially precedent setting in a lot of ways, because like we've talked about with AI and some other potential some things that this strike is standing up for. Like, these could be things that affect tons of other industries. And, you know, we've been scared of robots taking over our jobs for decades now. This is literally robots taking over, or it could potentially be literally robots taking over entertainment. And that is, like, insane. And there's a huge potential for this strike, I think, to set the precedent that is absolutely not okay.
Yeah.
And that could affect tons of different industries, like you said.
Absolutely. I mean, it could have a seismic change on everything, but talking about entertainment, it could have a seismic change in how we consume media. And I don't know about you, but I'm on my phone, I'm on my computer, I'm on my TV all the time watching things.
Yeah.
So it really could affect millions and millions and millions of people's day to day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it would affect their day to day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not just could. If these changes and I think it would literally affect their day to day.
Yeah.
How
Absolutely.
crazy that we're seeing this happen, that you're a part of it. You're literally on the picket line, a part of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Insane.
Absolutely. Now, an AI is going to listen to this podcast and like learn my voice and then make another podcast about it. That's the crazy part, that it could happen.
I know. It's probably already listening to my episodes.
Well,
like, how can we get her little accent right?
You need to be worried, because now you've hosted 100 plus episodes.
Yeah.
There's so much out there of your voice, and a machine could just like run your voice through and learn it, and then somebody could type something and say, I want Elena Grace to say this, and then she'll say that. That's reality. Because right now on
me now, Afsheen.
yeah, well, right now, because they have like, what is it like? They have like Homer Simpson singing The Weekend, right? Because
Right.
there's hours upon hours of Homer Simpson and hours upon hours of The Weekend, and they're able to like combine the two.
Yeah, I heard who it was, Johnny Cash singing like a Dolly Parton song or something.
Yeah, right.
You know, because they can do that. And like, first of all, it did sound pretty cool, but I was like, oh no, scroll by, I can't listen to that. I can't support it. But like, it really is scary. You're right, there's hundreds of hours of my voice out there. Like, I could be somewhere saying something absolutely insane, something absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And what am I gonna do? Say, no, that's not me?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's all I can do.
Yeah, it is a wild world.
It really is. Afsheen, thank you so much for being here. Tell us, this is my last question, how can the average person support the strike?
Absolutely. There's a ton of ways. Well, the biggest one is there's a few funds that you can give to, as you can imagine, with actors being out of strike and with 87% of actors not qualifying for the health insurance. There's a lot of actors and writers and creatives who are in constant need of emergency funds. So there's a few things online that you can give to. If you have even $1 to spare, I know it would be super appreciated. Just simply Googling, SAG-AFTRA Foundation or SAG-AFTRA Emergency Fund. and giving to those funds. There's a few others as well, like the I believe it's called the Actors Fund. You can give to that as well, and I know that's super appreciated. If you live in a big city, like New York or LA, there's constantly picketing that happens, so you can go join the picket line. Anybody can join the picket line. I know that everybody and anybody is very, very appreciated. And then smaller cities, like really and all across the U.S., they're doing events, so you can sign up or find out about the events by simply googling SAG-AFTRA striking locations. And I think the other thing is, just really sharing the message of the strike, whether it be on your Instagram or on your social media or just in conversation, because the more that people learn about it, the more people can sympathize and empathize with the actors, and then B, also kind of think about their own industry and their own working conditions, and kind of seeing how they can make changes in every industry, because not to sound cliche, but all of us, nobody's spiritual, we're all free. So, and
Absolutely.
we're all, for the majority, we're all kind of in this working class, and in reality, companies are making such big profits off of our work. So we're just fighting for an equal share, not a majority, not an unequal, not like a unfair, but just a fairness. I think
Right.
that's what everybody's looking for. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And something that stood out significantly to me was it was leaked that some major producers had said that they're going to keep the writer's strike going until people start losing their homes. And
Yeah.
I think that is just so incredibly telling. And that is so, that makes it so much more important and real for me personally to then support.
Yeah, yeah, and the truth is that that very much it's already happening. I know a
Right.
lot of performers and writers are having to cut corners in places that they didn't think they would have to. But when I'm on the picket line, when I talk to other actors and writers, everybody is in solidarity and everybody is really strong. So the community and the will of the artists that I've interacted with is par none.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. Afsheen, thank you so much for spending your time with us today, for sharing this with us, for educating us in all the ways that you have, and just for, as always, being an absolute pleasure.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
so welcome. You're so welcome. Okay, I know you can't, like we said, you can't promote anything you are or you have been in, that kind of thing, but can you share your social media with us
Yeah.
if people want to find you, that kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I'm at AffyJ. That's at AFFYJAY on Instagram. Also, I have an X or Twitter. I don't know what it's called anymore. And then I have a website called at AffsheenMisaghi.com. That's AFSHEENMISAGHI.com.
Perfect. And I'll have all of that linked out too. And you have a TikTok too, right?
I do have a TikTok.
Yes.
It's at Affsheen Misaghi. So it's
You're
at
wilding out on there
my
sometimes
first-
too.
Yeah, it's my first last name. Yeah, follow me on TikTok too.
You're funny. Okay, perfect. All of that will be linked in the show notes, and I can't wait for people to listen to this and to learn from it and love it. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you go check out Afsheen, you check out more of his work, and I hope that you support the strike because it is literally a part of our everyday lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate it. I appreciate it in advance.
Thanks so much for being here, and I'm sure you'll be back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Afsheen, thank you for this absolutely incredible episode. I genuinely can't say it enough. I loved this conversation with you. I think you are a dear, wonderful man, and I'm so thankful for you spending your time with us. It was so good, so informative. Absolutely a killer conversation. I'm so thrilled that you had it with me for my listeners. So genuinely, thank you for that. Listeners, thank you for being here. I hope that you loved this episode. I loved having this conversation. Tyler loved producing and editing it. I mean, this is chef's kiss. We love this episode, and we hope you do too. We hope that it sparks a conversation for you. We hope that it enlightens you. We hope that it makes you think about things in different ways. We hope that it makes you consider how one worker's plight is all workers' plights. And we hope that it makes you really think about the many different ways that the labor system affects all of us, whether it is the system that we're directly under or not. Like, it will eventually set a precedent that affects everybody who is working class. So now that I've said that, I think that this is just such an important episode, and I'm really thankful to have been a part of it. I appreciate you guys for being here. Before you go, make sure that you have shared this episode with somebody. Make sure that you have followed us on social media. Again, that's at I've Been Thinking Pod on Instagram and I've Been Thinking with Elena Grace on Facebook. Make sure that you check out the website, www.ivebeenthinkingpod.com. Make sure that you leave us a review, that you are liked and subscribed wherever you're listening. Share us with a friend. And if you want to check out our Patreon for extra content, patreon.com/I've Been Thinking Pod. We appreciate you guys so stinking much. I love you all, and I'll talk at you next time. Bye. This episode was hosted by me, your girl, Elena Grace Campbell. This episode guest starred Afsheen Misaghi. And this episode was produced and edited by Tyler Miller. We are proudly presented by Stoveleg Media.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.